Board to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Stata.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Goblin.
Here.
Beshen.
Here.
Bonsonfield.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
And Bergstrom. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Is there a motion to adopt or amend the agenda this evening?
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Chuck. All in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Any community input this evening?
If I may,
Yes.
I would just like to offer food for thought as a result of observation. If you ever get to the point where you have funding enough to have at least 2 people over there, at one time I was sitting back here at the computer and a toddler unattended came around and climbed up in one of those chairs by the overhang and was leaning over. And so the person at the desk was not helping anybody else so they could see, and got up and went over there quickly. But if there had been somebody there talking, they would not have seen that. And not that I think that should have to be their responsibilities, but it just might be something to think about.
Thank you. Appreciate that. This here. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to amend the minute, approve the minutes from our February meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Coral. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Laura. All in favor of approving the minutes from February?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we have minutes from February. Review and payment of available bills and accepting the financial report.
So Laura printed out a copy of the updated bills. When the packet went out, we were missing the invoice from Tri-North. So that has been added, so just want to make sure what you're looking at reflects that amount. I'm happy to answer any questions. We're kind of winding down on building project expenses. This should kind of be the last biggest bill we have, and then future months will be just kind of wrapping up loose ends in much smaller amounts. Are there any questions about any bills you see on the list here? There is the municipal property insurance, which is an annual bill. Property insurance rates nearly tripled just because the size of the building has tripled, and they did kind of estimate based on building costs, and may update that again in the future. That was a result of the new building. Are there questions?
Are you saying that the building expenses are, you say, are winding down?
The building project.
Building project, right.
Right, for the costs for the building project itself, yes.
And so do you expect to see more besides these invoices coming through, or is this going to wrap it up, or what are your thoughts?
There will be future invoices. There's a retainage for Tri-North of about $58,000 for punch list items. So that means basically if there's an item that's not done, there's an amount being held until that item is done. So some of those items might be, take a little while to wrap up just because some of them are outside. We want to make sure, you know, everything is wrapped up. But we will be getting bills probably April, May, and June, I would expect, for things. And then there might be some things that we were holding back to make sure we had money to be able to know that we had funds to be able to purchase. So you might see some additional purchases that we weren't sure if we'd be able to make or not.
So you think it'll all pretty much be entirely wrapped up by fall?
The federal grant part has to be wrapped up by October.
Okay.
But there could be, we'll have to see where we're at with donations and some of the conversations later in the agenda. And so there might be opportunity. Solar is one of the things where we'd like to add more of if we have funds.
Sure.
So that'd be a goal that we have. Also, we would like to consider a sorter in the future, but that does have operational ties that we would need to make sure we could handle the operational costs on an annual basis. So those are both things that we'd like to see funded for the building in the future if funds were to be available. Does that make sense?
Yes. Perfect sense.
Other questions, or is there a motion to pay bills and accept the financial reports?
Moved.
Thank you, Jen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Laura Curley.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on to 6A, establishing the nominating committee.
So this is something we do each year at this time of year per our bylaws. And so we say that we're going to establish a nominating committee that will come forth with a slate of officers for our 4 officer positions. And then our election takes place in June. I believe Laura and Carlene maybe served on the nominating committee last year. But we would be looking to appoint somebody to serve in that role again this year.
I'd be happy to do it again. I already have the Google form created and everything.
Appreciate that, Laura.
Sure.
Is there anyone that would offer to help, Laura?
As much as I'm not a senior member and wouldn't really be running for office, I could volunteer, I suppose.
Thank you, John.
I wouldn't be nominating myself for anything. Just saying.
Thank you, John.
What?
It's 2, right? 2 committee members?
There's no specific amount, but 2's nice, just to have, somebody to talk about if there's, ideas to bounce off one another.
Great. Is there a motion to nominate Laura and John as our nominating committee this year?
Well, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jenny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Coral. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have a nominating committee. Thank you for volunteering. Authorization for the SCLS to submit adjacent county reimbursement.
This is also something we talk about each year at this time, and basically we're eligible to request reimbursement from adjacent counties from residents who use our library and do not support a library of their own in the area where they live. And so South Central is able, we could bill ourselves if we so chose, but it's much easier for South Central to bill. They offer to bill for libraries, but we have to authorize them to do so. They can submit one bill to Sauk County, for example, on behalf of libraries rather than receiving 50 or whatever, so it's more easy for the counties as well. I would recommend that we authorize South Central to do that and bill all the counties listed except for Jefferson County because the amount of $4.14 administratively would not be worth it for us. That's it.
Is there a motion to?
I'll make that motion.
I can make that motion, Carly.
Thank you, Carlene. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jenny. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, everybody. Moving on to the Kelch Aviation Museum request for surplus shelving.
So we have not really had much time to work on surplus items that are at the old library. We previously declared the majority of the items left in the building as surplus, including the shelving. And we had a request from the Kelch Aviation Museum, I think they're in Broadhead, to obtain 2 rows of shelving. And so I guess I would recommend that we approve that. They're a nonprofit organization. We've had little interest in the shelving, and it's very unique sizes, shapes, and is very old, and it doesn't all, it's not like a set, it's all purchased at different times, and so I think we're gonna have a difficulty finding a suitable home where it can be reused and rehomed, and there's also costs for us to have to disassemble it and move it and things like that. So my recommendation would be that we would approve the request for 2 full rows of shelving, provided they can pick it up during Monday through Friday business hours at a mutually convenient time, that they would do all the disassembling and transport themselves. They did also have a request for tables and kids' chairs. We are hoping to do a small auction for the kids and kids items that there's some community interest for, and want to make sure that we make that competitive if it is a high demand thing, and then if it wasn't, they'd still have a chance to get it that way. So that would be my recommendation.
Is there a motion to approve the request for the 2 full rows?
Yes.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Laura. Any discussion on this one? Keep forgetting to ask.
Sounds
I
good.
have a question, not about them, but about the shelving in general. The last middle school that I worked at had just ancient shelves that were lovely. They're, hardwood and all that, but they needed more, and I just wondered if there's been any outreach to like school libraries, particularly in Madison, that haven't had money in a long time to improve their libraries.
We started reaching out with a few surplus items back before we moved, and we had very little interest when Laura reached out to groups, or we had a number of people that said they were interested and canceled when they had figured out they had to move it, or got into the details. So I think we had interest from 3 different parties that all canceled on us and said, just kidding.
Okay.
And so we haven't done outreach beyond that. When we get to the point where we're ready to do that, we'll probably reach out to, we have a library email list that we can reach out to, both in Dane County, which is probably where we would start, and then there's a statewide list, but we just don't want to reach out until we're ready to have, that's a huge time commitment, so we don't want to start that
Got it.
conversation until we have the resources to be able to respond to it accurately.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlene. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of approving the 2 full sections for cultivation?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to 6D, Building Automation System Software Maintenance Agreement Proposal.
So this is a proposal by ControlWorks for the software for the HVAC system, and the agreement includes a number of things, including basically keeping the software version upgraded to the latest version, protecting the database information that we have for our system. They have some telephone and online support, so you can email or call with help, and the JACE upgrade as well. So basically what this does is allow us to keep those things upgraded on an annual basis, which is to our advantage. If you wait and don't do that on an annual basis, like I heard another library suddenly had a very huge price update, and then they're playing catch up, and sometimes there's compatibility issues or data that's lost, and so it's better for us to be able to space it out both budget wise and also in terms of the maintenance support, and then to have the support in the meantime. So I would recommend that we approve this 3-year proposal. They are the company that installed the controls, so they're very familiar with the system. I worked with them at my previous library, and they've been helpful in troubleshooting some issues that we had earlier this week. So I guess I would recommend that we engage in the agreement with them.
So we don't have anybody monitoring these things at this time, or they sort of are on an interim basis?
We
or?
could choose not to sign this, and if we do that, we would still be able to call them. There's certain things that would fall under the warranty for the first year.
Right.
Moving forward, they would charge us an hourly rate for support, which, depending on the issue, could end up more or less than the amounts quoted here, depending on how much we have for concerns. We would also have to, at some point, pay a fee to upgrade the software. And so instead of doing that on an annual basis, we might do that in 3 or 4 or 5 years, but the cost might be much higher. So this is also locking us into current pricing.
Okay.
So if prices go up 10% over the next 3 years, and then we have to pay the fee all at once, so instead of paying the installment over 3 years, we might be paying it all in 1 year, which is a little bit harder for us for budgeting purposes.
Of course.
So, yeah, am I explaining that correctly?
I think that's a great idea. May I make that motion?
Please.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I apologize for engaging in discussion prior to the motion.
Okay.
It's my bad.
That's okay. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question. Is this the agreement that we have the second piece on, the 1901 preventative maintenance agreement, or is this the one that's in
That's
the
it.
packet?
So it's the page previous, it's the page previous to that. It's, it says Control Works on the top left and Honeywell on the top right.
Okay, got it. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I'm there. Okay, got it. Okay, thank
So,
you.
sorry, I hate adding stuff to the packet after the fact. I know
No,
that's
it's fine.
confusing.
It's fine.
Okay, all in favor of approving the 3-year contract with Control Works?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you. Now moving on to 6E, the HVAC preventative maintenance agreement.
So the HVAC system, this is actually the equipment itself. So like the DOAS unit and the filters and the heat pumps and things like that. So there is a 1-year parts and labor warranty on the system, and then I think the compressor has a 5-year warranty on it, or the compressor condenser, probably saying it wrong. All parts and labor for any warranty issues is covered under the first year. So until December, I think it's 13th, we have any issues that we have with the HVAC would be covered under warranty. But we are still responsible for some seasonal maintenance and preventative maintenance like filter changes and many of the items you see listed here, just to make sure things are working properly and just maintained. So we got proposals from 2 firms, including one that installed the system, and there was a significant difference in cost between the 2 proposals. Because most of the work is covered under the warranty, and because both firms are very capable and knowledgeable firms, I would recommend you go with the proposal from 1901, which is a little lower. And we had our commissioning agent and owner's rep review and talk about both proposals. They both feel, again, both companies would be capable. We did have the installing company have the opportunity to price match the other company, and they did not wish to adjust their pricing. This would also, having a different party than did the install, would also help be another double check to identify if there's any potential issues, which hopefully there aren't, but just kind of another double check. And again, they would be asked not to do any work on any service issues. It would be strictly maintenance, like filters, filter changes and things. The original proposal had some red lines, and those were comments from the commissioning agent. He redlined some things like there's no gas equipment, which came from the O&M manuals, which is why they thought there was. And then just some clarifications about that they would not do warranty work and things like that, because we want to keep it very clear so that both companies are able to take care of and get credit for what they're taking care of. Are there any questions?
So the installing company maintains the warranty work,
Correct.
and the maintenance company does annual maintenance?
Would just do the preventative maintenance. Yeah.
Preventive, thank you.
And that's all they would do. So if they came and did preventative maintenance on a filter and observed that there was some other concern, they would notify us. They wouldn't touch the issue, they wouldn't fix the issue, and we would coordinate that strictly with the installing company to keep it clean.
I believe it's incredibly imperative to have proper maintenance.
Correct.
Have you heard the expression, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail? Seriously, you gotta maintain this stuff, in my opinion.
We did budget some maintenance. My guess was a little bit lower than the lowest proposal, but it was as close as I could reasonably get with not knowing geothermal systems. So.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I bet the geothermal adds to that a little bit.
The heat pumps and the amount of filters on the heat pumps.
Yeah,
It's, yeah.
but gonna be worth it long term. Yep.
None of us know how to do it.
I
don't
did have
think-
training on changing
that-
all the filters.
That would maybe be a conflict of interest for a library board. I could be wrong.
Give me the filter, I'll go out and change it.
So is there a motion to approve the 2024 preventative maintenance contract with 1901?
So moved.
Thank you, Coral. A second?
Second.
Any additional discussion or questions?
We could ask both companies to provide proposals at the end of 2024 for what 2025 maintenance would cost, so we have comparisons.
Good idea.
Okay. All in favor of approving the contract?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, we have a contract for maintenance.
Did she look like a bell when she said aye? That was super cool.
Sorry.
No, that was amazing.
Came in right on time.
Timing is
Moving on to 6F, authorization of repayment of the short-term loan.
So the great news is we got our first installment of reimbursement for the federal grant.
Yay, finally!
Which is delightful. We had taken out, the village had taken out a $1 million loan on a short-term basis to make sure we could pay our obligations until we could navigate the process and find out when we would get reimbursement. So that has happened. So now there's a balance of roughly $240,000 remaining on the loan and the federal grant as well. We are eligible to make reimbursement requests. They call it a draw. So basically you submit a form saying we've had these expenses, we'd like to request reimbursement for any expenses that we've made since the past reimbursement. And I plan in this next batch to reimburse ask for about $195,000 for the next draw. And so we'll be submitting a request to them for that. So my recommendation would be that we would repay that balance towards the loan, the $195,000, and we could just say we could word it in different ways. It could be a request. We could repay the loan in the amount equal to the draw request. We could say I could give you the balance that I'm planning to request. We could do that exact amount, but that we repay that amount to the loan, knowing that that's the amount that we would expect to have back in our accounts in 3 weeks. That would also help cover any bills that we get next month. So by repaying it promptly, we'll make sure we don't incur any unnecessary interest. But we're also pretty sure we can cover the bills that we get. And then we do have our fund balance that if bills are unexpected or there's some delay in the funds, that we would be able to use our fund balance to cover on a short-term basis, working with the finance department and the finance director to make sure we're doing that appropriately until we can get those remaining funds. We just don't want to pay any interest we don't need to pay.
If we dip into the fund balance, the plan then would be to reinstate the fund balance when able.
Yeah, if we did that, it would only be as necessary. So
Right.
if my calculations are off and we repay the loan balance, but suddenly have a bill that we can't cover because we don't get the reimbursement quite as promptly as we want to, it would just be basically covering that until the reimbursement came and we would repay the fund balance. So it'd be just basically a short-term loan from the fund balance, should that be needed. Hopefully it won't be needed, but that would be our plan if there's unexpected.
But that's why we had it.
Yes, yeah, but it would just be a temporary thing.
Right.
The village does have other mechanisms for advancing funds too, so we would work with them if that need did come up. There might be a better avenue that they prefer to use, but this is something we discussed as a possibility if needed as well.
Makes perfect sense to me.
That's great.
And congratulations.
Yeah,
Right.
finally.
like 2 years.
Do you want me to,
I
is
don't
this
know.
recommendation here that you want?
Yeah, let me grab my sheet that I was working on the recommendation until right before the meeting started. I would recommend we repay the short-term, or authorize the village to repay the short-term loan for the library grant in the amount of $195,890.08.
We will go with very specific recommendation, but I would like to make that motion, please.
Is there a
You don't want to round it up?
Nope, because then the accounting doesn't match and then it makes my life difficult.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Coral. Is there any discussion or questions?
Yippee.
Yeah, congratulations on
Yeah.
you and the village staff and everybody who helped get everything together.
I'd buy you a drink, but I'm not allowed to.
All in favor of the repayment by the village?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Opposed? All right. Let's move on to 6G, naming opportunity for makerspace and benches.
So we were approached by a donor who is very interested in the makerspace opportunity, but had 2 requests that I'd like to run by you today. And then there may be another discussion item for the next meeting. The first request is they're wondering if they could use in celebration of someone's name as one of our naming conventions. All our plaques right now say in honor of or in memory of someone, and they're wondering if in celebration of would be acceptable. And so that's something that we'd like to be able to ask you to approve or deny so that we can report back to them as it may factor into their decision. The other request they had was whether or not benches, one of the benches or two of the benches up front could be included in that naming opportunity for the makerspace. As we've discussed in previous meetings, some of our naming opportunities were priced a little bit higher than comparable projects because we were trying to raise a lot of funds. And we've had very few donors contribute and select naming opportunities above the $50,000 mark because of the price points on many of those opportunities. And they are interested in the $75,000 naming opportunity, but just asked if a bench or two could be included, and that might also again factor into their decision. Are there any questions about those two items that they were hoping that you would make a decision on tonight? If you don't feel comfortable making a decision tonight, then we can tell them that would be something that we discuss in the future.
Can I ask, did we have anyone else ask about changing the wording beforehand? Just knowing that we've had like knowing that naming opportunities, as you mentioned, have a lot of feelings around them.
Yes.
I think maybe my only concern there is if we say in celebration of in this situation and someone else is like, well, that wasn't an opportunity for me or that wasn't an option for me. I'm wondering, were there any other discussions like that previously that we?
There were none. We had discussions like that previously. There are a total of, I think, 5 plaques that say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plaques that say in honor or in memory 7 of somebody. And so any one of those people could potentially request that they would like that same wording.
Okay.
Well, so it could
maybe
be something
that's
somebody else feels
right.
strongly about.
If we're willing to change in that situation, then I don't have a concern about it. I just don't want to put us in a position where we've,
I don't.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Coral. I think that if there's someone who has had a room or a space named and they would like to change it to Celebration, if we're okay with that, I think the idea of in Celebration, particularly for a creative space, is really quite appropriate. And so I would go with that, and if somebody else wanted to change theirs, if we're okay with that, with doing that, I don't have a problem with it at all. I think it's kind of cool.
Is it pretty easy to change the existing placards that are already up?
It's not pretty easy, but it's doable. So there would be a cost of buying a replacement sign. So that would be something that, we'd obviously prefer to avoid, but, could be a potential cost. The sign company we've worked with is wonderful, so they've had to, I think they've had to switch something else around. We had a temporary sign in another location. You can't tell that they made that change. So I'm confident that they could do that without anybody noticing that had been done. But it would just be the cost of the replacement sign should that be requested.
I'm wildly in favor of this. May I make that motion?
Please.
I wildly move this.
Are you in favor of both pieces that we discussed?
Are we just
or are we just doing the naming right now? The
I'm-
wording, or also the benches?
I'm good with
Sorry
both.
for being a stickler.
No, that's good.
Then talk
We might as well be
about
exact.
that.
I'm good with that, the whole package.
Okay.
Is there a second for the whole package?
Second.
Thank you, Carlene. Is there any discussion around the benches?
How many benches did we?
So he specifically had asked for 2. So,
Okay.
and the idea is just to put a small plaque, something it's not going to be like, hello, I'm a bench and I.
That would be weird, honestly.
So the idea is just to put a small
Okay.
placard on the side of one of the benches, or 2 of the benches in the front, and
Hello, I'm a
it seemed
bench.
like a.
I have no concerns. I mostly wanted to be specific about the
No,
number
that's
of
good.
benches.
Yes, 2 I think would be
Okay.
appropriate.
The other thing that I would throw out there was just because of where we are at in the project, we had to make our decisions previously based on the dollars that were available. And so we built the library, we built based on the dollars that were available. So I guess I would recommend that we consider asking that the funds contributed be usable for the building itself, but also for amenities for that space or even future programming, because that could help ensure the future success of that space. It would benefit all ages. And then it would help us make sure we can use the funds responsibly and in fitting with the goal of the donor. If
I
we
would
get to do
love
that.
that, because especially the funding for future activities there is something that has been a concern of mine over the last couple of years as we head into this. So
Can you add some language at the discretion of and then name who would be making those decisions?
I think we would want the library to be able to make that of what the funds are gonna be used for. I think it would just okay us to be able to talk to the donor to say, does it have to be specific building costs, or could this money be used for programming? I think it's kind of the request that we're trying to make.
Yeah, because if somebody donates it just for the building, it's restricted to capital costs. And because we didn't know about these when we were making decisions about our capital costs, we suddenly, when Trinorth's wrapping up their work, we can't just be like, oh, we want to add $75,000 more square footage onto the building. We can't make the building bigger, that way. And so we just want to make sure that we can honor the use, but then also make good uses of the funds and ensure the success of the space. Does that make any sense? Mm-hmm. Having that flexibility, we may put some of it towards the building, and but there's equipment we might want to get. We might want to get paint. We might want to have a presenter. So there's lots of things that will help make that space vibrant into the future. And if we have a little flexibility with that, and the donor really wants to see that space succeed, that would be, I think, a good use of that outside of just being restricted to capital only. Does that make any sense?
mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
So do
That
we,
makes sense, and I have a question about that. For future, as we, not particularly to this donor, but for future donors, if we wanted to say the donor, we built the building now, and all of these things have happened, and programming is ongoing. Can that be built into sponsorship of spaces moving forward, so we don't have to backtrack?
What I would like to do is have a conversation maybe at the next meeting about naming opportunities, and oftentimes projects take them off the website and make them unavailable after the building is completed. Mm-hmm. And so that's something we could discuss, because it's a little bit difficult after the fact. Then you have different sponsorships lasting different periods of time and different expectations. So I think we should have a holistic conversation about that. We also don't want to detract from fundraising efforts by other groups in the community that might be working towards building projects. And so we always take donations, and there's ways that we can honor the goals of those who want to support us, but maybe taking those naming opportunities off of the website and not actively promoting them anymore might be something we wish to consider. We certainly could keep them available. We do have the levels, and if somebody wanted to have a conversation, we would have that information available. But whether or not it's something we want to keep on our website is something that's available or not, something that we might want to discuss.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Yes, John.
Would you reach out to some of the folks that have already put naming plaques in place in honor or in memory of, and let them know, and just enter them into the discussion so they can be aware, or just kind of let them find out?
Find out about a new space being sponsored?
Well, I mean, if we're allowing this space to have a celebration.
Like a change in policy.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think I would notify anybody, but if anybody expressed concern, we'd be happy to. I feel like anybody that would have that concern would have an easy way to reach me.
Sure.
And I would be happy to have a conversation with them and could respond very quickly and making sure that was taken care of if it was of interest.
Okay.
I don't anticipate most people will wish to change. Everybody thought very carefully about what they wanted it to say.
Okay.
And many people may just be more comfortable with, more traditional language. But if somebody had a question, I'm happy to talk. If somebody's listening right now and had a concern and wanted to change, I'd be happy to talk to them.
Of course.
I'd be happy to work with them if this is something you move forward with.
Thank you.
do we need to amend the motion to include a conversation about the directing of the funds? Or is our motion?
Yeah, I think we
just
probably do need a friendly amendment from someone.
Yeah, should we word that friendly amendment, President
I'm thinking,
Laura?
I think just amending it to have the conversation to include the possibility.
Potential for programming and use of the space, not just capital.
Thank you.
So do we understand the motion? We can
Yep,
get the,
so should I summarize? So motion
and then
is
I would
to-
get the approval of the first and the second prior to the vote.
Yep. So as I understand, motion is to approve the naming in celebration of being used, as well as including 2 benches into this opportunity out front, and then discussing the potential of using those funds for programming or materials for the space.
I'm comfortable with that wording.
Thank you, John. Are you comfortable with that?
I'm
Bill?
comfortable with that.
Yep. Great. Any other discussion or questions around this motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everybody. With that in mind, I think we are going to have some further conversations. So I would like to skip 6H today and offer that we discuss that in April. If that's okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. And then we'll move on to 6I, the IRA incentive assistance and proposal from Energy Savers.
I think my recommendation might be to skip that one and talk about that in April as well.
Okay.
Laura and Jenny and I went to a workshop about that, and a number of folks have completed the pre-registration form, and that's as far as anybody's really gotten on the process, and nobody really is sure how the rest of the process will go. I don't want to spend money unnecessarily, but I also feel like I don't have the time and the knowledge to do that on top of everything else we're trying to do right now. But I don't want to waste village funds or resources. So given another month, I might have more time to attempt it, or at least get through the pre-registration process. I think the thing that we want to make sure about is that we're optimizing our funds, and nobody is really quite clear on what is eligible or what exactly that's going to entail. So
Unless you have an electric vehicles seem to be super easy. So if you want to buy one of those for the village, that seems to be something you can get like $7,500 for. So that's what I took out of that whole class.
And there are two
Great.
proposals.
I'll get on
So
that.
one thing we might do is just approve the one for the geothermal system, and then once we've done through it there, it might be super easy to do a solar next year. That's a little bit more defined based on how we did the bid documents, based on the costs and what's included. But the geothermal is doesn't include the heat pumps, doesn't include electrical. So that one's the one where you have the potential to get a lot of funding back, and that's one where just knowing a little bit more might get us a lot more money. So we might come back and say, hey, let's request that, and that knowledge might help every other village project after ours. So it might be worth it. But let's revisit that, and I'll see if I can give it the old college try before next month for real this time.
Should we make a motion to table these, or we don't even need to do that?
I don't even think we need to, because they don't have to be action items.
Okay.
Moving on to 7A, the Senator Baldwin's CDS USDA grant report.
So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that we got our first payment of funds.
Hooray!
Which we're very happy about. So it's been 23 months. We first applied in April of 2022. 2 weeks before it was due, we learned about the opportunity and have been working on it pretty much ever since. So I'm very excited when the village got that transfer. We'll be doing another draw request by April 4th so that we can get that transfer as soon as we're eligible within April, and then we'll have to see what funds remain and what requirements remain as to when the final draw request will be made. So that's super exciting, and just really appreciative to the USDA folks and also to Senator Baldwin and her office staff, especially Justin, who've been super helpful in trying to help us navigate some of the requirements that may have been barriers to us when we first found out that we were selected for the funding. So.
Thank you for your persistence and your planning. if it wasn't for you, I don't think everybody would remember all the small little details that go into it. So great job to you and your team.
So we might be at the point where we can announce to the village board that we actually got the funding.
Can we go to the newspaper and make a big deal of it?
So
You mean like they said we did, but we didn't yet?
we never
never
publicly
announced it.
announced it.
They forgot.
Wisely, since it took how long? Some things we just keep to ourselves.
Yes.
Congratulations. Your report.
So we had our 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten event on Saturday the 2nd. And it had a wonderful turnout. I think there were almost 300 people come through our front doors during those 2 hours, which is great. It was like 275 or somewhere in that ballpark. We had Clifford, the Big Red Dog, and David Landau, the musician. The Lions Club is a supporting sponsor of that 1,000 Books program. They also had some volunteers here. So just a great event and just a really vibrant time at the library. So fun to see that, and it's nice with the space that there can be a lot going on, and it doesn't seem quite quite as overwhelming as it was in the old library. So
I can't even imagine.
I remember.
that's exciting. The Friends of the Library are going to have their first book sale here on April 19th and 20th. So I encourage you to help spread the word or support their sale if you're interested. They're excited to be moving just, next door from one room to another instead of across town and their storage locker. So that'll be great for them. Something called the Daily Reporter just announced their 2024 top construction project honorees, and the Oregon Public Library made their list of 50 honorees for construction projects in the state of Wisconsin. So they're going to have a special event in May, and I'll share any information about that event once I receive it.
I think it was a 2023 top project.
2023? Oh yeah. Probably we're not top project for next year.
Oh, yeah.
So just
That's
not
correct.
that much, but
I
just.
will correct that. That's a great thing to know. I didn't get the actual announcement directly.
It was a weird email from
Kind of
China, right?
putting things together.
P.S. You won this. Cool.
They thought they copied me on it, but they had my email address wrong, so I didn't actually get the announcement the first time. So that was a little weird.
It is, I wanted like impress, it is actually a pretty big award because the Daily Reporter is like it's construction and news all over the state of Wisconsin, right? So they're looking at things all over the state of Wisconsin to get this award. So it is a pretty big
That's
award for us to
cool.
win.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Congratulations.
At the chamber dinner, Laura and Jenny were able to accept recognition from the chamber of the library in the new construction category. So that was really great to see the business community, include the library in their recognition dinner, which is awesome. We continue to work on our punch list. We have multiple subs on site most days, probably 2 to 4 depending on the day. Tomorrow we have, I think, 4 on site again. So we've gotten a number of things resolved since the last month's meeting. They've been working on a lot of the exterior stuff. We have the Bruce Company and RJ Houston here, kind of trying to wrap some of those things up. So there's a lot of work being done, and we're getting day by day closer to getting that list down. We still have about 30 items on that list.
Wow.
We are still waiting for the shelving installer to do their punch list. They said that there's some shelving still missing. They said that that's going to ship 3/25 when I'm on vacation. So we're pushing them to schedule it right after the election. It's been about 3 months, which is almost the same lead time as a brand new order. So it's been a little bit disappointing to have it drag out for so long on that respect. The election for the village will be on April 2nd. The library is going to be a polling place, so we're very excited to be able to serve that function and help the village out, and then just welcome people to the library that may not have been here before. So
Instead of the church.
in addition to, so they're doing 3 polling places instead of 2. So
Yeah, I was gonna say now I have to figure out where I need to go.
There-
Or I'll just show up at all of them.
There's a map downstairs.
Vote early
and
and
then
often.
You can use the myvote.gov website to type in your address and find your polling place as well, if you aren't sure where you are.
Follow up.
February, we worked with a lot of subs to kind of do some work. So we had a couple big projects that happened. They reinstalled the team carpet. The wrong carpet was installed in a portion of the area, so we had to move all the shelving, take the books off the shelf to get that back in. So we really appreciate them working hard to get that done. We had the space shut off for most of the day. Thankfully, it was done before after school. The teens were there. And then also had an issue with the landing on the stairwell, and they were thankfully came and did that at 8 o'clock at night so that it would be dry and we wouldn't have to shut off the stairwell. So really thankful to Surgenians for really working around our schedule and going the extra mile to get those things done in a way that was really allowed us to stay open and running. We also, Laura and Public Works and I and our management team have had wonderful owner trainings on almost every system, so you can see that that's kind of what we're going through now. We only have a few left, and we'll be working on imparting that knowledge and documenting it for future use and other staff in a way that they can understand. But that's kind of the highlight of what's been going on. You do have the March event calendar in your packet showing what you have on the schedule. We're kind of starting to see more and more programming return as we're kind of getting more into our normal routine. And really trying to make use of some of the rooms that we have. Yesterday, the community room, we had an ACT testing for sophomores in the morning, and we had 2 other reservations, so that room was in use almost all day. Wow, which is really great to see. For our statistics, you have that in our packet. You can see the door counts continue to be just as high in February as they were in January. Even though it's a shorter month, we had a few days that we were closed in January because of weather. And checkouts were basically equal both months. Reference questions are much, much higher than they were with that separate desk. We're getting a lot more reference questions and people asking because people are able to focus on really helping them, so that's been great to see. And then we are seeing more items checked out from our own collection as well, with people just coming into the library and seeing what we have available.
It's easier to see all the picture books. It makes me a little sad that my kids are not littler than they are.
And the picture bookshelves are pretty bare just because we've gotten, I think the use is double in the
I
last
bet.
2 months, and so the shelves are pretty
checked out.
empty. So that's a little
It's
bit
amazing.
of a downside. Our large print and our picture book use have both gone up like about, I think it's about double for both of them. I'm going by memory here, but we can look at that more. We'll look at that more like mid-year, but it's got like at least 100% increase in use for
that.
some of those
I love
collections in
that.
January at least. And then you can see the new library card chart. The number of new library cards has been phenomenal. It's off the charts just because so many people are trying the library again for the first time, or maybe didn't find something in the library for them before and now are excited about the new space and are checking it out again or for the first time. And then Overdrive still continues to be popular as well. So if there's any questions, I can get more information for you. We'll just try to keep you updated. We do expect things to calm down a little bit after the initial excitement, but that they'll still stay much higher, and then we'll continue to grow. That's what happened to Wanakee when they moved, was it kind of calmed down a little bit, but then it continued to grow from a number that was higher than where they started to begin with. So they're much busier, and prior to 2018 were actually busier than they were, and then now their use has just gone up so much with their new space. So we hopefully we'll be in that same boat.
Jennifer, when you gave the tours to the other area library directors, what did they have to say?
I've only done I did Middleton and Wanakee, one staff person from Wanakee, and then Sun Prairie.
Who from Wanakee? Sorry, being nosy, but I have friends there. Who from Wanakee?
Their building maintenance person. He was super helpful to us, and so he was excited to come see us.
I'm sure.
We've been getting
Different,
positive
but-
comments, but I don't know if people would say unpositive things to us, especially if they know us. So I don't know if I can really give their feedback, but just really positive comments about the inside of the space, the details on the inside. People like the furniture, the comfortable chairs, the details with the circles and the end panels and the graphics and things like that. And just the feeling, the lightness and the windows.
It's
very
so
popular.
quiet too. I think that has really struck me because I think in my head still how big and open it is. It felt like it was going to be maybe noisier than it is, and it is so quiet. Almost startlingly for someone as loud as me, obviously.
It's got an amazing vibe. The atmosphere here is crazy. Crazy good.
It's fantastic. I can't wait to see what happens when we're looking for a whole month, how many people come.
Same.
Like a normal length of a month.
Really?
Committee meetings, personnel committee in April.
We're working on, normally the personnel committee meets in May, and we're trying to bump that up just because summer is usually our busiest time, and typically they ask for director evaluation feedback in June, but with how busy we are, that's really not a great time to ask staff to just do one more thing. So we're hoping that moving the meeting up will allow them to do that same process that they normally do, but to get that feedback in May before school gets out when we're a little bit slower.
Yep. I think that's completely doable.
Carlene, do you have any village board announcements for us this week or month?
Just a couple of things. One of the things this group might be particularly interested in is that the Public Safety Committee, which I'm part of, had wanted to do, we had wanted to try to be able to somehow limit where vape products could be sold. And because the state legislature passed Act 73, I think it is, that law preempts anything that we can do as a village, and so that we're still looking at ways that we can limit density of places that can sell vape products and those kinds of things, so that we don't end up with vape shops everywhere and lots of those kinds of products that are being targeted particularly at youth to be sold. So that was one thing that we passed to change to the ordinance, but it wasn't, I'm giving you background information, it wasn't really what we had hoped we would be able to achieve. The Transportation Committee also put out a request for proposal because they did get a grant from the state DOT, to be able to investigate things in our community around what people would like to see for transportation. And I know the library, getting to the library is one of those things that there's been some concerns about, and so that's certainly something that the Transportation Committee will be trying to address. So I think those are the biggies. Wasn't a very eventful meeting the last time, but just know that as Jennifer said before, there is an election coming up. There was recently last Sunday there was a candidate forum, and the election will be on April 2nd. Early voting starts March 19th at the Village Hall.
Thank you, Carly. Thank you. I can't think of many school district announcements besides spring breaks coming up, so might be a little busy here in a week or two if people are having a staycation and things for a road trip.
Alex did the ACT class at the library, and he said it was super easy to use and was glad, so we were glad that it was available, so that's a positive thing from the school district. So.
Yeah, no kidding.
Our next meeting will be on Wednesday, April 10th, here at the library at 5:15 p.m. Besides adding 6H and 6I to our next agenda, are there any other future agenda items anyone would like to request? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Coral.
Second.
Thanks, Laura. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thanks all.
Thanks, Carlene.
So,
Aye.
question.
Bye.